Cruisers 16, clear Shucks Main to eastbound.
This past weekend, the railfan community was abuzz with excitement once again for another famous historic steam locomotive moving through the area. Those of us in central Pennsylvania are privileged with front row seats every time one moves to or from the Strasburg Railroad. And on June 8th, Chesapeake and Ohio 614 is on the second day of its journey from Clifton Forge, Virginia. This is the final leg from Norfolk Southern's Enola Yard, down the Port Road branch and over the Columbia Secondary to Lancaster. From there, a new crew will hop on, taking it the rest of the way over Amtrak to Lehman Place for interchange with the Strasburg Railroad. Despite being a slow trip limited to 25 miles per hour, the lack of stops on the way has progressed this ferry move at a quick pace through Virginia and Maryland, and is not something of the likes which we've seen since Norfolk and Western 611 was moved on these very rails a few years ago. This territory is a far cry from the route of the George Washington or fast-flying Virginian. In fact, the sight of a steam locomotive would be an oddity here even 80 years ago, as the Pennsylvania Railroad electrified this route in the late 1930s, making this part of the journey all the more interesting, and perhaps the final time we'll see a steam locomotive under the remaining catenary infrastructure that's funded for pending replacement.
Norfolk Southern, milepost 44.4, track 2, no defects. Repeat, no defects.
Plenty of people are set up in Columbia, an easily accessible location where the Columbia Secondary splits away from the Port Road on the track closest to us, with Kola Tower still standing on the right. I figured dozens of people would be set up here, but it seemed like a light chase crowd for a Sunday afternoon, possibly kept away by the incoming bands of rain. I race ahead just a few blocks up from Kola Tower, where the secondary passes the Columbia and Reading Railway, a short line named after the Reading Railroad branch between the namesake towns, which joined the Pennsylvania Railroad here off from the right. I couldn't tell you when the last live steam trips were through here, probably one of the Strasburg doubleheaders sometime in the mid-1980s with 7002 and 1223. Around that time, 614 was used on a series of test trains in West Virginia for American Coal Enterprise while trying to develop a modern duplex steam locomotive, but the project was never fully realized. Chesapeake and Ohio referred to their J3A Class 484s as Greenbriers after the luxury resort along the main line in White Sulphur Springs. In fact, Ross Rowland had 614 painted into the current Greenbrier Express livery after the locomotive was moved back to West Virginia in 2011, with anticipation of steam excursions between the resort and Washington, D.C. However, lack of cooperation from CSX and Amtrak led to 614 remaining on display at the C&O Railway Heritage Center in Clifton Forge, until it was announced in fall 2024 that Rowland sold 614 to RJD America with plans of restoring it back to operation. The 068 crew flies through Mountville, just a few miles out from Dillerville Yard, where the weekend H26 crew will take over for the mere 12-mile journey east on the Amtrak Keystone Corridor. An hour later, the rain caught up to us at Amtrak's Holland Interlocking, where the New Holland Secondary splits off from the main and is served by Norfolk Southern local trains. Amtrak 42, the eastbound Pennsylvanian from Pittsburgh to New York Penn, is right on time today out of Lancaster, running just ahead of H26. 6 minutes later, the headlights shine off the rails, spanning over the Conestoga River, a historic bottleneck where 4 tracks slimmed down to 2 over the Stone Arch Bridge built in 1888. Today you wouldn't know the difference if not for the catenary spanning over the voids left by the tracks that have since been removed. The journey down Amtrak would also be a slow one, limited to a max speed of 25 with the orange LSL light lit up for the occasion. I was hoping for a meet with Amtrak 43, but they were running a few minutes behind and round into view a couple minutes after H26 moves out of sight. Instead of barraging through at track speed, 43 slows down for the approach medium at Holland, line to cross over at Conestoga due to the ongoing work at Lancaster Station. After getting caught in the rain with a soaked camera, I decided to wait it out in the car instead of getting even further drenched at Lehman Place, where dozens of onlookers gathered and hundreds tuned into the virtual railfan Paradise Cam. H28 was also working nearby on the New Holland, but never materialized before it was time to head over to Strasburg. Fortunately, by the time I arrived over at the Red Caboose Motel along Paradise Lane, the rain let up and 90 was tasked with doing the honors of heading to Lehman Place for the final pull of 614. Returned to service earlier this year after quick work performed on the 1472 service day inspection. Being a Sunday afternoon, the Amish are all out doing their business, soon to be made aware of the latest steam giant to call Pennsylvania Dutch Country its home for the next couple of years. It's been almost 30 years since 614 pulled the trips over New Jersey Transit out of Hoboken, and it remains to be heard when and where the 484 may run again. But for the time being, 614 remains in a good home at the Strasburg Railroad, hopefully to be seen again on a triumphant return to the high iron. I hope you enjoyed this brief look at Chesapeake and Ohio 614 being transported through the Pennsylvania countryside, and are just as excited as I am for the announcement from RJD America. Until then, I appreciate you all for liking and subscribing to my videos. So as always, thanks for watching.